I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Ruffian Style.
Tune into the
Don't Tap
podcast.
Don't tap
podcast.
John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why I'm saying the rankings are bullshit.
Motherfucker from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you.
Oh, Canada. Sorry, I had to do that. Holy shit. UFC 289. Man, I was at UFC 129, and that was a pretty electric feeling. That room, the Sky Dome, the Rogers Center, the 60,000 plus fans screaming was pretty crazy. But this was different as far as like the feeling of like Canadian MMA itself, like not the event, but Canadian MMA and where it's at. Pretty excited that everybody swept the card. Kyle Nelson proving people wrong. Jasmine what we talked about, Jasmine just wrestling and then striking out of nowhere. Her striking is coming a long way, and I think a lot of people misconstrue age for time in the game because she's getting better and better each camp, and when you're young in the game, each camp, your wrinkles get better and better. So definitely interesting. What were your guys' thoughts on this? Obviously, Mike Malott and everything else, but I'll let you guys take it away. You guys know I'm through the roof about this. And hey, Nick, do me one favor. Stop fading fucking Canadians, eh?
I was on all of them except for Kyle Nelson. I talked a lot of shit. Kind of happy you didn't post that video.
Yep. No, I didn't. I came really close to posting a video of you just talking a whole bunch of shit and then Kyle Nelson landing a whole bunch of punches. But I thought I'd hold off and let you have your thing.
Yeah, man. It wasn't to be honest, like that's probably the best thing that could have happened to me because I had so many parlays riding against Kyle Nelson and I was able to rebuild and still make a decent amount of profit on the card, but didn't start off great, man. Kyle Nelson winning, definitely good for Canada. Very bad for me to start that night off. So,
and it is tough, man, with Builder having such a shallow career. I mean, that's sort of what's shown through in that one. But what was your thoughts on the night that was from the American side of the border, my friend?
I thought it was all right. I mean, it was a pretty good card. A little bit sad to see Amanda Nunes, the Lioness, retire a little bit. Nice to see Charles do Bronx Oliveira get right in the wing column, and a couple surprises on the prelim as well. So I mean, it was a pretty good card. Not the type of pay-per-view I usually get eat up and excited for. I could have went for a little bit more finishes on the main card. I thought the main card was a little bit dry in the beginning. But I will say Marc-Andre Barriou versus Eric Anders, damn near fight of the year, man. That was a great way to start off the main card. But the last couple of fights on the prelims, though, were kind of boring. Imanov versus Curtis. Curtis kind of backed his way out. I mean, you see why everybody was talking shit on you on Twitter last week, bud. But overall, though, good card. Can't complain. A lot of prelims. The prelims were stacked with underdogs. You could have made a lot of money if you would have just blindly backed every underdog last week. But I don't think it's going to be the case like that this week. So we'll get into it.
Man, Ariel Helwani hit Arichi Lang so hard that he thought that the fight was just starting when he stood up. So that's pretty nuts.
That was crazy.
Absolutely crazy. All right, well, let's dive into this one. I know that Canada's still sort of feeling the energy from last weekend, and there's a whole bunch of fight cards going into this weekend, actually, with BTC coming up and then Unified the following weekend. Pretty exciting time. So let's jump into the UFC Fight Night card, Vettori versus Cannonier. And let's let our guests, actually, no, you know what? I mean, I'm going to call you out a little bit, Nick, just because you really did fake Canadians a lot last weekend. As much as I play up my bias, and I do because it's just sort of fun, I have now Billy to sort of counteract it and you to come in with your whatever that was last week. You're pretty much American at this point. You can have him, Billy, as I said. And if you can start off because you need to get a win here, and I want to see what you got to bring to the table for the first shot.
Whoa. Okay, I need to get a win. I've been doing okay here, my friend. Kyle Nelson still isn't going to win his next fight.
I'm just chirping you, buddy.
No, man. I'm going to start with the main event, man. I like Marvin Vettori a lot in the spot. I don't understand the line movement coming the other way. I think with Jared Cannonier, those power shots he's going to be throwing aren't really going to phase Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori kind of feeds off this type of stuff. Jared Cannonier hasn't had a KO pretty much since it was Anderson Silva. Then there was one after that, but we're looking back like 2018, 2019. And I think, he's like 38, 39 years old. I think he's at the tail end of his career. He doesn't do very well when people start pressuring him, and he tends to give up whenever he's not in the driver's seat. So I think Marvin Vettori is just going to be able to not necessarily even like out wrestle him or out strike him, but he's just going to be able to outpace him. So to me, it's kind of shocking that the line's coming the other end. I was going to bet it like minus 130. Then I checked and went down to minus 125, minus 120. Now it's sitting at minus 110. So I'm going to sit there and see where that line goes. Starts going in the other direction, I'm going to jump on it. But I just think his pace and pressure, man, is going to be too much for Cannonier. And unless Cannonier really gets off early, I don't see him winning minutes in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, Cannonier, he lands with power and he usually gets moments or knockouts. And I mean, Vettori just has a brick head, man. And his pace and his pressure is there, and he's usually closing the distance, so you don't have time to land those big shots. I'm sort of with you on the Vettori side of things, but Billy Briz, what do you say, man?
I'm kind of with you on the Vettori side of things, more of a Vettori type of guy. Not a fan of Jared Cannonier. I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of Jared Cannonier. I think the only concern I would have with the Marvin Vettori side is I don't think they're really. What do you do with Marvin Vettori if he wins this fight? I mean, Israel Adesanya already beat him how many times? I mean, how many times are you going to run that? So, I mean, for the division, I would probably say Jared Cannonier makes a little bit more sense for the UFC. That they probably want Jared Cannonier to win, but I mean, we know Marvin Vettori is capable of doing grappling wise. It's just, are we going to see that here?
Okay, yes, I'm pretty much I lean with Vettori because when I've faded him in the past, he's burned me because of his pace, his pressure, his stubbornness. I mean, even when the guy loses, he thinks he's won. You got to like that. You got to like that about him at least to some degree. He just wants to win, and he goes in there and he does fight for your dollars. So I'm with the Vettori side of things. Why don't you bring another one to the table then, Billy? What do you got for your first play?
Yeah, Carlos Hernandez versus Denis Bondar. We got a striker versus grappler matchup here. Both fighters coming off of losses. Hernandez was gifted a couple of split decision wins, though, after being submitted by Nascimento. Bondar, the Ukrainian, was a highly touted prospect coming into his UFC debut versus Malcolm Gordon, but he kind of got a little bit unlucky, suffering an arm injury that led him to get finished. Fight only lasted 81 seconds, but he has very strong offensive grappling and enough striking to be able to get through parts of the fight. Hernandez will have a striking advantage, but he has shown some wrestling deficiencies throughout his career. On the Contender Series, he was taken down 5 times, once in his UFC debut, and then twice his last fight that ended in a first-round finish. The line opened up at minus 135, Hernandez plus 110 for Bondar, but seeing a lot of money coming in here on Bondar. He's now the minus 125 favorite, and that's how I would have the fight line, despite not seeing the plus money price tag. I still like Bondar as a bet this week. We're getting somewhat of a discount on the talented grappler. This is more of his UFC debut of a rerun. Hernandez may have the striking and experience advantage, but he fights too close in his fights to have confidence in backing him here. I definitely like Denis Bondar, the Ukrainian, this weekend.
And I think Bondar has enough striking upside with his grappling as his main base that he can really mix it up enough to really, win a decision. I like that pick. Nick, what do you think about that pick?
Yeah, I agree, man. I got Denis Bondar plus 110. The second that line dropped, I jumped right on it. It was pretty much on bet online. Couldn't find it on anything else, but I think he takes his opponent down early and often. And I think the line is completely off. I'm shocked that he opened up as an underdog. I think people just look at the loss to Malcolm Gordon, and maybe that has something to do with it, considering he's definitely one of the flyweights that gets the least amount of attention. But yeah, man, Bondar all day, easy.
Okay. I'm going to bring a play to the table, and I'm dipping my toe into one that a lot of people are probably not wanting to touch, but I'll do it anyways. I'm going Barcelos minus 160 against Miles Johns. Miles Johns does have power, but he's low volume, and Barcelos, so though he did get dusted and made look bad by Umar. It's Umar, so it is what it is. But if you look at all of his fights, he has 73 strikes against Jones. He has 134 against Henry, 69 against Valiev and 2 knockdowns, and 120 against Taha versus a guy that doesn't have volume. I just don't think that Barcelos is as washed as I hear some people talking about right now. And I think that Barcelos is going to be able to go in there, land volume. And I like him as a spot. And I know it's a little bit of a greasy spot, and I get it. But I just think that matchup-wise, if you look at these two, I think that Barcelos is going to land more volume and then also more damaging volume. So give me Barcelos, whether it's he beats him by decision with moments or he gets him out of there, which Johns has been knocked out. And I know Barcelos is too, but Barcelos is a spot.
I have a little bit of concern here about Ronnie Barcelos. This is more of a prove it to me spot. If it wasn't Ronnie Barcelos and it was a regular case scenario with the underdog being 7 years younger and has grappling upside here, I mean, I would probably lean towards Miles Johns. But I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov, I don't know how much to really take away from that fight, but it definitely does confirm the fact that Ronnie Barcelos is on the lighter end of his career. And I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Johns came out here and gave Ronnie Barcelos a run for his money. I don't think Ronnie Barcelos is the same guy that we used to be out there. I remember him losing to Victor Henry, and I was highly shocked he lost to Victor Henry. So if he's losing to guys like Victor Henry out there, I definitely think a guy like Miles Johns could be a type of recipe that could probably give Ronnie Barcelos a little bit of problems here in his lighter end of his career. More of a stay away fight for me. I lean towards the Ronnie Barcelos side, but no bet for me. I think the value side for betting would be betting the underdog here at Miles Johns. I think there's a little bit more upside here at Miles Johns grappling. And I don't know, man. I hate to bet on fighters that I know that are trending down in their career. I like to bet on the guy that's either coming up or he's in his prime or he's already in the championship fight or something like that. I don't like betting on the guy on the tail end of their career because those are how the less variables of MMA come back in to haunt you. Like Ronnie Barcelos just randomly dropping towards a punch or something like that and gets clubbing up.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree, man. This is the fight I looked at as a stay away. Miles Johns by KO is sitting at plus 500 right now at open. It's probably something I'm going to sprinkle. It's just, as Billy said, man, like, whenever a guy gets KO'd stiff like that, I'm always very worried about what he's going to look like when he comes back. And, like, how is he going to take a punch? Like, it's almost like instinctive that whenever these guys get KO'd like that they're very cautious when they get hit. So Ronnie's the type of guy that's going to come forward. He's definitely going to be the more aggressive fighter, probably land more of the shots. But in retrospect, man, like Miles Johns just throws bombs. And if he clips Ronnie and Ronnie doesn't like it or has some flashbacks to what Umar did to him, I think Miles Johns can get him out of there. I'm not confident enough. I don't like the money line. Like, there's no other really aspects. It's just plus 500. It's a sprinkle. I don't mind. But it's, yeah, as Billy said, man, it's kind of a show me spot. I got to see that, it's still the same Ronnie Barcelos that we know.
And I'm going to probably look at Barcelos by officially decision and KO as sort of the play. I just think Johns is there to be had. I think he's going to be crushed like a can. I think although he's going to go in to grapple, I think he's going to get hit and hit pretty hard and not like it at all. With Barcelos, though, I get what you're saying about the being hit. Like if he comes and he looks hesitant actually in the first round, that's actually a worry because if he is a little bit hesitant, that's when guys get knocked out when they're overthinking. But if he actually comes in full bore, I mean, I sort of like him doing that better than I think he's a better shot at winning the fight if he does that than any other way. Because the counter hook maybe, but I mean, I just see him voluming and landing some big damage. But I get it. I'm getting greasy this week. Probably too cocky for my own good, but I'm looking more at just tape and matchup, and I just think that this matchup wise, we have Barcelos win. So next pick, let's go, Nick.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with the slight underdog in this one, man. I'm gonna go with Armen Petrosyan. Like, I understand that a lot of people have hype on Duncan there, but like from what I can watch in his tape, man, the guy comes with a lot of power, but he doesn't come with a lot of technique. He hasn't been extended too much in a lot of his fights, and with Armen being the type of guy, great kickboxer, as long as he can avoid the wrestling, I see him probably losing the first round. But if he doesn't get clipped in the first round, I see him winning more moments in this fight, being able to control distance and just landing the cleaner, better strikes. I tend to lean with guys like this where I know they're technical, He's sitting right now with an average of like 25% takedown defense, but that's because he fought CO, and CO is a human backpack and will run anybody's takedown defense down. So
I'm laughing at your pronunciation of Kyle Barrio, but
Bahario. But yeah, man, like it's just whenever I look at this, I think the wrong guy's favored in this one. I think Duncan's definitely live for the finish, but if this fight gets extended at all, I definitely like Armen in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan has 8 of his wins. He has 6 KOs, 1 sub, and 1 decision. And that's like across regional level all the way up to the UFC. And then if you look at Petrosian, I mean, one of two things is going to happen here. Either Duncan's going to come in and be able to land on Petrosian and maybe get him out of there, which I don't think it's going to happen in my opinion, when he mixes in some wrestling, some dirty box in the cage, and maybe clip him, because Duncan is a finisher. Or you have Petrosian, who I think this is more likely. There's going to be a definitive line, and this is actually one of my plays of the week. It's going to be the under 2.5. But I think Petrosian is going to be able to just show you the difference in skill level and just snipe. And I think he's going to land some big shots and get Duncan out of there as he's overextending himself. The under 2.5 right now is plus 110. I think that's going to get juiced to shit. So if you like it, the reason why we're getting a little bit of plus money value, Petrosian's gone to decision. But as I said, either Leroy comes in like a bat out of hell, mixing in wrestling and gets Petrosian out of there, or Petrosian snipes his ass with better striking and better volume power and gets him out of there. So my play is actually the under 2.5 plus 110 for that play.
Yeah, don't blame me. I kind of lean towards a little bit under 2.5. I'm a Chris Leroy Duncan guy, and I would be shocked if he doesn't finish Armin Petrosian here in this spot here. I get it. The first fight on the Edwards Usman card wasn't the UFC debut everybody was ready for, but to be honest with you, I feel like people are sleeping on Chris Leroy Duncan. He's gonna have a freaking 7-inch reach advantage here, and I think that's the story of the fight. We got a Muay Thai striker versus overpower hand wrestler, basically. So we have the wrestling and we have the reach advantage. I think he has the ability to stay at distance and probably hurt Petrosian with his power. And if shit gets a little bit sketchy, he can wrestle. I like Chris Leroy Duncan a lot here. I've never been too high on Armin Petrosian. I honestly don't even know how he even got put on that Dana White Contender Series fight, because I remember taping him coming into the Contender Series fight. He got knocked out in AMC by Hassan Yousafi before he came over to the UFC. So, I mean, I still think there's a little bit of chin issues here for Armin Petrosian. So I don't blame you for playing the under 2.5, even though Duncan has been a little bit inexperienced. But I think Duncan is going to shock some people here. Always a big favorite over there in Cage Warriors. He's always minus 300, minus 500, minus 1,200. So we're kind of getting somewhat of value with him coming over here to the UFC, and not a lot of people knowing who he is yet.
This couldn't play out perfect, right? We have Nick on one side, you on the other, me in the middle with the under, and both stories you guys are telling tell the story of the under. So, this couldn't play out perfect and be broken down perfect. So love it. That would be my spot that was taken there. So, Billy, what's your next spot?
Yeah, Pat Sabatini versus Lucas Almeida. This is a fight where I see a lot of line movement coming in here on the favorite. While I do agree with Sabatini being the pick, I may venture off into the props in this one. Almeida's a tough striker on the feet, and he throws 6.60 significant strikes per minute. And that's the biggest flaw in Sabatini's game, which would be his defensive boxing. But I mean, he's coming out of the Renzo Gracie Philly gym with Marquez, gym right down the street from me. So, I mean, his submission grappling is top notch. If he can get the back of his opponent at any time, I mean, the fight can end very quickly. But Almeida, even though he never uses his grappling, he does have a good enough resume. I mean, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself. So if Sabatini isn't able to get the grappling going, I think Almeida could defend some takedowns. And if Almeida, who was previously scheduled to fight Hakeem Dawodu, that was a better stylistic matchup, but they settled with Sabatini taking the replacement here, which is a whole entire different stylistic matchup. So how much drilling and training has Almeida really done in the grappling? I think that could come back to haunt him. And Pat Sabatini is no slouch, man. 64% submission rate. He could definitely be the first person to submit Almeida here.
Pat Sabatini, the man that actually started this podcast. It was a breakdown on a chat in Facebook. Nick and I were going back and forth. Emmers was my pick, him coming in with some Muay Thai and knees, and thought that would be the play. But he showed poor fight IQ, and Sabatini gets the submission. And I was looking at this fight. I was interested in this fight. It's definitely interesting because I think that this definitely has a high probability of finishing inside the distance. I think one of the guys is going to have the advantage. I'm sort of interested to see how Sabatini responds after being knocked out the way he did by Damon Jackson. Because with Damon Jackson, when he came into that fight, that was just sort of out of nowhere. Like, I don't think anybody really expected it. It was just sort of out of the blue. The man was possessed. I interviewed him after, and even he said he was a man possessed in that fight. So I don't know if Almeida gets him out of there, but I mean, I sort of like, how just do you think Almeida by KO, Sabatini by submission is going to be?
Yeah, I mean that's probably a FanDuel special. I don't know what the line is going to be on that one, but that would be. I think there's so many different ways to attack this fight. It's definitely a fight that's going to be on my betting card this weekend. That's definitely probably the way to go about it. But I think Sabatini could win by decision though.
Yeah, that's there too. I mean, maybe you throw Sabatini by submission and decision as well too. That may be getting too complicated. But Nick, what do you think about this fight?
I think it's greasy, man. The more I look at this fight, I think Sabatini needs to wrestle early and often and keep Almeida on his back for the duration of this fight. So I agree. Like I think the under is probably the play. Because as I said, man, if Pat Sabatini is able to keep him down, then he's gonna be able to get a sub, man. But if this fight stays on the feet, Lucas Almeida is gonna beat the living shit out of him, and it's not even gonna be close. So Pat Sabatini is somebody who has shown to have chin issues. Even then, we're talking about the Jamal Amherst fight. He got clipped hard, and that was early in that fight. So, yeah, man, under the FanDuel special or DraftKings or whichever ones you can get the split props on, it's definitely the way to play this. But if this fight goes to decision, I would be shocked.
And as we look behind me, that is Diana Belbita taking down one of her training partners and also getting rid of Maria Oliveira out of the UFC. If you saw her removed from the list today, Nick, I actually think you have the next pick on the card.
Yeah, so my next pick on the card, I'm gonna go with a money line and an under. I like sorry, fucking thing just screwed up here. I like Torres a lot, man. Manuel Torres. Nicholas Mota is a guy that got KO'd by Jim Miller, although we saw Jim Miller put on a striking the other weekend too. This is a fight that I love from an under perspective. The under 1.5 is minus 138. I like the under 2.5 that's sitting at minus 275. Both these guys come in and throw. Nicholas Mota got a KO in the first round. His last fight has a lot of first round finishes, and just as one of these guys that comes in to bang. Torres being the exact same. And I think, man, like minus 275 is a perfect parlay piece. Because I said, I think this fight ends early. And I think it's going to be one of the best fights we see. And although I like Torres, I have him already parlayed up. The under covers you on both aspects of it.
I think it is a parlay piece, man. I don't think there's a way that fight doesn't end inside the distance and or under like a 2.5. You can get it even under 1.5. I think it's going to end pretty early. But Nick, Billy, what's your take on that one?
That's a fight I got to research a little bit more. I felt like Manuel Torres was the side coming into it pre-flop tape, but I got to tape a little bit more on the Mata side. I've been seeing a little bit of sharp action coming in here on Mata. I don't know how to really feel about this fight because I gotta do more research, man. I gotta do.
I've been backing Mata as well too, and the only thing about him in this fight is he does get clipped, and Torres is one of those guys that he wants to land everything high percentage damage, and he goes for the finish. So I think there's going to be a chance you're going to see Nicholas get clipped in this one, but this one I do like the under definitely because I think either way, you're going to see Manuel Torres maybe get finished near the end, get volume near the end, and or Torres finish early in the fight. So under finishes under 2.5. Is that what you were saying, Nick?
Yeah, under 2.5 is minus 275. That's it. It's just chalky, but it's parlay. So
okay, so I'm gonna dig into one, and I'm gonna be real greasy. So, this fight, I'll first give you the lines that I'm looking at. I actually like the fight ends in split. That's one of the first things I'm gonna look at as a crazy prop I'm gonna throw out there. So I think this goes to the scorecards, and I think that as much as we look at Salikov and how he's been finished twice and finished someone twice, I just think that Dolby's just a decision guy, and I think this is gonna go to decision. I think it's gonna be close. So just looking at it right now, so you have split decision, and then also even the over. I mean, it's already moving. So it was minus 170 a little while ago. Now it's minus 179. That's probably not going to have value as of this even going out. So the over is probably not going to be a play anymore. But if Dolby goes over plus 180, I'm hitting it because I think this is going to be a really closely contested fight. I think you have two guys that are pretty high level kickboxers. And although you have Salikov, who has a little bit more dynamic spinning attacks and whatever else, maybe a little bit more finishability, I think Dolby's good enough to be able to stay at distance and do it, keep a good distance to keep himself out of trouble. And then also both guys are pretty much even when it comes to takedowns and takedown defense. Salikov having 77% takedown defense and Dolby having 65. So it likely plays out on the feet, and I just don't think Salikov's going to have the finishing ability in this one. I think Dolby's going to be able to stretch this out. And I like this fight to end. You know, if you can get dog money on Dalby over +1, like around +180, I'm with it. Right now, I think it's currently sitting at +160. But initially, my play was the over, but the over now is getting juiced up. So, big prop, fight end, split decision. Dalby over, or Dalby if he goes over +180. Billy or Nick?
Yeah, this is a fight where I kind of lean towards the Muslim Salikov side. I think you can make this look very easy against Nicholas Dalby. Not a lot of people that they can match up Salikov with, but I mean, Dalby's still hanging around in the UFC. I honestly don't think Nicholas Dalby's that good. I think he's been trending down in form since fucking he fought Jesse Ronson in COVID. I mean, then he came up against Daniel Rodriguez, shocked everybody, pulled off a unanimous decision. Now he's been on a roll a little bit here, but I think it's all going to come to a hailing halt against Muslim Salikov. I if I could rely on Salikov just a little bit more if I can get a confirmation that he's going to throw volume and land here, I think he could smoke Nicholas Dalby in this fight. But I don't know if I have that confirmation, so probably just going to stay off of this one.
Nick,
You see this picture? This is Muslim Salikov's picture on Tapology. This dude looks like he was born in the fucking 40s. No, dude, I like Muslim on the spot, man. I backed Nicholas Dalby in his last fight. I think he's a good fighter, but I think he's a good fighter in fights where he's fighting guys that don't have like a strong striking background and like, you know, he's able to control the pace and stuff like that. But Muslim throws so wild, man. Like, even if Nicholas Dalby wins the better part of this fight, like Muslim's still going to land the moments, and that's something the judges have shown that they're kind of favoring more nowadays. They're not really showing the strike percentages. There's a real world where Nicholas Dalby comes in and just jabs him out, and you know he's relatively high volume, but I think
here's what I'm hearing:
beats the shit out of him.
nothing definitive from either of you, really. Like, although you guys are saying you weigh him heavily, and I'm not even on Dalby big time at all. It's just for me, if this is going to be close and it goes over a certain number, it's going to be a value boy play, 100%. I actually think that Salikov has a little bit more upside, but I think that it's still going to be close. And that's why, I mean, the split decision is sort of fun and everything, but I mean, just there's value in the dog. I think that Dalby is durable. He shows that he doesn't get finished. He can, you know, stay in there and mix it up enough. So I think that Salikov is more talented, has more attributes, but I just think there is value.
Dalby went to a split decision with Wally Alves.
Yeah.
And that's a fight, man, where he should have won pillar to post, man. Like, that should have been him all day. And I had a lot of money on Dalby that day, and I was fucking sweating that ticket. And so that was not a fight I should have sweat. We look at Andre Fiallo, right? Like, Muslim Salikov came in and he just put in a beating against a guy who has pace and pressure. And you can compare Andre Fiallo and Nicholas Dalby, and the difference is Andre Fiallo actually hits hard. So if Muslim Salikov can turn the table against a guy that actually has punching power, he should beat the living shit out of Nicholas Dalby.
Yeah, I just think he's a greasy guy. He stays in fights, and as much as it doesn't look good and we want to fade, it's one of those situations where we want to
look at that smile, dude. Can you bet against that smile? Look at that.
I mean, he looks like I don't know, a cosmonaut from like the 60s. I don't know. Did he just come back down to earth? I have no idea what's going on right now. Is that above your bed?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. Yeah, no, like I said, it's not that I'm big on Dalby, but I just think it's going to be really close. If you look at the stats, they just all line up. But I get what you're saying is both you saying Salikov being a little bit more of the talented guy. But I'm still taking the split decision shot.
Hey, you know what? I told you like 17 times that Builder is going to beat the hell out of I don't even want to say his name anymore because I've said it so many times.
I'm not trying to recreate a Kyle Nelson moment here.
Yeah, I got one more spot. Looking at another prelim fight here, Felipe Bunes, aka Filipino, versus Zalgas Zumigulov. I think there's a lot of value here on the debutant here, despite his 13-6 record. Sometimes I think it's a little bit better when they make their debut with a couple of losses at 33 years old. He's going to be coming into his prime, coming out of the Pitbull Academy. He has a strong submission game with 8 out of his 13 wins by submission. Grappling is going to be his go-to route. Zalgas, a familiar face in the promotions, got re-signed after he claimed he was retired. You always like to fade the retired fighter. He's only 1-5 in his last 6 fights, and he's been trending down in form. Bunes is going to be a little bit more the physically stout fighter. Zalgas is going to be a 3-inch height and 5-inch reach disadvantage for this fight. And all of his losses have became from, I feel like, long flyweights. I mean, Charles Johnson, Jeff Molina, Manal Cape, Albazi, Ruby and Paiva. Those are all rangy, long flyweights. And this is another one in that category. And I feel like he's been gathering some social media attention of recent because of his hairstyle change. So a little bit of public money's been coming in on Zalgas. But give me the debutant here. I think he has more tools in his bag to get the win here. And we're getting plus money on it. I think it's my favorite underdog of the week.
Huh, not a bad spot. I like the breakdown, my friend.
Judges do love to absolutely rob Zalgas, so betting against him is probably the easiest thing you can do. Betting the split decision, very simple play. Like 5 of his last fight against Charles Johnson, he was a minus 1,400 favorite whenever that fight ended, and somehow still lost the fight.
He does have that.
I think the debutant, even though Zalgas has never gotten submitted before, so I do agree with you. The split decision would probably be the most likely outcome, but I think the debutant could definitely cause a little bit of problems here for Zalgas and be the first person to submit him. I mean, Duke fought Juicier Formiga over there in LFA. I mean, he's 13-6 and got signed to the UFC for a reason. I mean, he's been causing a hell of a storm over there in LFA, and that's like a feeder promotion right into the UFC. And I don't think they were trying to really build up Zalgas. I mean, he's 1-5 in his last 6 fights. If he wins this one now, he's what? 2-5. What do you still do with that? I think you fade the retired fighter. Strike 1. Strike 2, he always loses close decisions. Strike 3, this dude has all the submission skills possible, and he has a better grappling, and it has a physical size advantage. So 3 strikes, you're out. Zalgas, go catch those. Go catch that little visa and go back to where you belong. Because
what's your promo code? Brother. What's your promo code, and what bookie do you want me to go to? You got my money. I'll go place the bet. Seriously, that was a great breakdown. I think that even with the Zalgas fade, I think this is the legitimate fade that you might want to play because even the judges seem to fade this guy. Based on what you're saying, I'm going to cap the capper. I think obviously we're looking at maybe a decision, submission, double down, if it has good value.
Yeah, probably submission decision. I kind of like what Nick was preaching about a little bit. Maybe Felipe Bunes, aka Filipino, by split decision could be an option too.
Okay. All right. I mean, it seems like you have a good take on that fight, so attacking it from a couple angles isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, another one that I want to look at was, who do you guys think is like the lock on the card, even with a little bit of chalk? Like I was looking at the Zarukian fight. I don't know.
Armin
Like,
Shuriken.
He's the lock on the night, right?
Dude, I mean, what can you really do with a minus 1,000? Yeah.
Is that what he's at? Is that what he's at right now? See, I didn't even look.
Yeah.
I almost knew, like, subconsciously not to even bother looking at that. Never mind.
Yeah, that's just a gimme fight.
Because everybody, okay. What I'm trying to do is look for a locky piece to match up with that violence piece you were talking about earlier to make a little bit of a parlay, even or we can look at a violence parlay. But who could we line up with that Petrosian? Or no, sorry. What was your violence piece, Nick? It was the Torres Moda.
Yeah, Torres Moda under fight.
So what could we line up with
I kind of like Marvin Vettori a little. I kind of like what Nick was preaching about Marvin Vettori, and that's the side I'm leaning. And if I'm leaning that side, I definitely lean towards the overs in that fight. I mean, Marvin Vettori death taxes in the decision. I mean, that dude can't finish anybody, it feels like, especially at this top tier level. I kind of like the over in that fight.
I think over-unders are probably, like, if you're betting the shit pre-flop, like, over-unders are more the play than money lines in this, because there's a bunch of fights that scream violence, and there's a bunch of fights that scream are probably going to go to split decisions and be fucking greasy. So, but yeah, I agree with Billy, man. The over in that fight is definitely the way to play it.
Okay, so what are you guys thinking? So we go with an over and an under for the parlay for the week?
Yeah.
We got over 2.5 rounds minus 225 for that fight. Over 3.5 rounds is minus 200. So, I mean, the bookies are kind of feeling the over under. Majority of books are going to have the over 4.5 at minus 160. So, I mean, I think fading the Jerry Cannonier knockout could come back to haunt us a little bit here. How do you guys feel about the Alexandra Costa versus Jimmy Flick fight? I'm a huge Jimmy Flick fan. Have a little bit of relationship with Jimmy Flick, but that stylistic matchup versus Alexandra Costa.
I like the under, to be honest, because I think if Flick's gonna win, he's gonna get him out of there early. And if he doesn't, Flick to me is one of these guys that's kind of showing durability issues. And as I said, they're retiring, then coming back, and he really didn't look good against Charles Johnson, or it just, I don't know. Like I favor that fight to not go the distance. And that covers your win condition and the fact that, if Flick does get the early submission, at least then you're still covered on that basis.
So do we just put balls on the table here?
Sorry. And we hit a bunch of spots between all of us. So, as long as Nick doesn't, back Nate the Train and or anybody who's coming in to fight Canadians.
You know what? If that fight went 5 rounds, Nate the Train was winning. I don't care what anybody says. He won the 3rd round. Danny Gay was tiring. Nate the Train, we need 5 round Nate the Train.
Danny Gay got bored.
Okay.
So all right. I think you guys found some pretty solid spots. I really like some of Billy's breakdowns. And Nick, I think you hit some good ones this week. I have a feeling you guys will be the ones to lean on a little bit more because I'm getting a little bit greasy with some of my picks. But we will see as the picks sort of lay out by the end of the week. I know you guys put them out on Twitter. And I know as basketball season is winding down, I understand that we may have someone coming to sleep on our couch for a little while for the summer.
Yes, sir, man. I'm getting excited, man. Getting excited for the summer months here. We got a lot of MMA events over the next couple of weeks throughout the summer. So ready to put my foot down and really get towards the win column because we're talking about this in the DMs last week. Felt like had the right ideas for the card, just couldn't couldn't really narrow it down. I had some couple spots that ended up having a couple of hiccups, like David Dvorak, Eric Anders, but had a couple of the right calls were right, but the bad calls, you just got to slide those off. So more about narrowing down the spots and really going like 3-0, 5-0. Those are the weeks that really pay off tremendously in your real life.